Watch as I take this boring ceiling we had in our living room that looks something like this and completely change it and made it beautiful into this by adding decorative wood beams. This is a simple DIY that I want you to tackle. All you need is some pine boards, stain, and a free weekend. Let's flash back where I first started ripping down the boards out in the garage on my table saw, preparing to make that first wooden beam.
I started out making this main 6-foot beam by striking a straight line and cutting it down with my circular saw. This will act as a control line when I go to rip it with my table saw. These longer pine boards tend to cut from end to end, so if you skip cutting the control line and just slap it on the table saw, your 45-degree miters will never line up. Trust me, I know from experience. Once the boards were cut to width, I took some painter's tape and taped all the seams together. Not gonna lie, this part had me a bit skeptical because painter's tape never really holds up well outside of taping it to drywall. I'm sure you could use other types of tape. I've seen people use packing tape. I wouldn't recommend duct tape, however, because it may work a little bit too well and leave some sticky residue on the boards when you go to take it off. It wasn't until I reinforced the beam with a second layer of tape going perpendicular with the boards that I felt confident it could hold. Grabbing it from the middle, I'm trying to flip the boards over so that the 45-degree miters are facing up, creating small channels in the wood.
Now time for the glue up portion. I'm going to use this TiteBond 2 glue where the two 45s meet together. They're going to create like a channel. I'm just going to flood it with some glue.
It's okay if you have a heavy hand on this one. Honestly, the more glue, the better. Just make sure you coat both sides of the board since this is what's going to be giving the beams its strength. Bringing the sides of the beam together, I took some scrap pieces of wood and cut it down to match the width of the beam, and then place these pieces every 2 feet or so apart of each other. Then, taking a clamp, I wanted to lock down both ends of the beams, just so I don't have to worry about it falling apart, and I know that it'll keep its shape. Flipping the beam on its side, it's now time for the moment of truth. I start to peel back the painter's tape to see how well these 45s are coming together, and right off the bat, the ends are starting to slip. I quickly grabbed my finish nailer and shot some brad nails into the beam to keep it in place. Wasn't too surprised that the ends weren't lining up because you gotta think, this is the end of the board, so when I put it on my table saw, all the weight was towards the end, and it kind of got away from me, so that's what I was expecting. But the rest of the beam was nice and tight. I was surprised. Those miters were on point. I worked my way down to the other end of the beam, just removing the tape while shooting a brad nail every 2 to 3 foot. The game plan is you don't want to do a ton of brad nails, just let the glue do its job. Too many nails and you'll start to see them in the beams.
I had the beams 45 set where I want it, however, in some areas there are like some more gaps. So what I'm going to do is just take anything rounded, for me it's a screwdriver, and just kind of round out the corners. And what's that going to do is going to take the glue and going to mesh and kind of close those joints. So here's the deal. I have to get this beam mounted to the top of the peak of the A-frame. There's a structural beam up there that I want to mount to. I made like a little ledge from a 2x6, mounted that, that's good to go. So the game plan is to start on one side, heave it into the ledge, and then just carry it up this ladder that I got on the other side. And hopefully I can fit it in because I'm gonna need to scribe it to the ceiling. Let's just give it a shot.
Honestly, at this point in the build, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. Really happy how those miters turned out. You know, feeling confident. I was like, you know what, let's just throw this thing up. I can do it myself. I don't need any help. And I got humbled real quick. It was about halfway up the ladder when I realized I can't do this myself. And I need to call somebody to get over here to help me.
We're gonna have to change plans. It needs to come up together. Right now, I thought I could put it on one side and then just kind of carry the other side up, but the beam is too wide, so when I start going up, it kind of hits in the corner of the wall. And if I was to cut it back, by the time it raises up and it's at the right height, it's gonna be short, so I need to call somebody.
This is flash forward a couple days later. My uncle ended up stopping by and we ended up putting up the first time. Then I called my brother-in-law. He helped me take it down because it wasn't right. Then I was like, you know what? Let's just go ahead and sand and stain it in the garage. And that's what I did. Then I made the final call. This is my brother helping me put it in. And I'm not taking it back down after this. Secured it with some 2-inch finish head screws. I ended up using a handheld car jack This is a little trick that I learned back in the day. I wanted the beam to be nice and tight up against the ceiling, so I just used a 2x6 at the top and the bottom. Now it's time for the branch beams. Before cutting the official ends of the beams, I cut some templates out to the correct angles and measurements that are needed, just to have a nice snug fit. So these templates I needed to cut for every individual branch beam. They were all new angles. Definitely took some time, but in the end it was worth it, and it's a step you can't skip in this process. Essentially, I would set the templates on either end of the beam and then mark the sides, then connect the lines together to get the correct angle needed. One tip I learned is that when cutting the sides of the beam, don't finish the cut all the way through. Stop just short of the edge. That way, when you go to cut the face of the beam, you can use your jigsaw at a 45-degree angle, and it'll be a nice, solid cut. If you don't, the angles won't match up and it won't fit as snug to the beam or drywall as you'd like it to. Since I was setting these beams in place myself, the easiest way I found from trial and error was just jamming the top of the beam into the main beam. This kind of created like a friction fit. That way I could work on one end, set it with some screws, and then finally tack it in place on the other end. Once it was set, I took my pencil and scribed it to the ceiling. The drywall on the ceiling was a bit wavy in certain areas, causing the beam not to sit flush. But please, if you've been following along so far, don't skip this step. This is what takes a project from just a standard DIY to a professional type of finish. The technique is so simple, but it just makes a world of difference, and it's worth the extra 30 minutes of your time. At this point, it was just rinse and repeat everything I just did on the 3 remaining beams. Towards the end, it started just to go up like clockwork, but all good things must come to an end, and now it's time for the fun part. I just need to spend time just taking them all down and then prepping them for sand and stain. Quick tip, when you have all the beams lined up together, they all look the same. So what I did was just taking a piece of painter tapes, I just marked, going counterclockwise 1 through 4, and when it's time, then I just put the beams back up in their spot. Don't even have to think about it, and they're good to go.
Let's flash forward the next day. We were dealing with some bad weather last night. I went ahead and already stained them, those special walnut, brought them inside. Now we just have to install them. That should just be a pretty quick ordeal. Just putting a screw at the top and bottom and just setting it, and then we'll see how it looks. And that's how we made decorative wood beams in our living room. Again, you can take this concept and apply it to any room in the house. You want to do the kitchen, your bedroom, and the laundry room. It's the same thing applies. You can do it to any type of room, and it really makes it pop. But that's all we got for tonight. Overall, I spent maybe about $1,000 in material costs, and that's just wood, stain, polyurethane, the whole 9. Again, for a space this big, it spans about 16 foot, and the branch lines came off about 10 foot. Again, a space that big will require more wood, and you can't, and I didn't want to splice it all together, so that's why I kind of got out of hand, especially with pine board. The prices are just getting crazy. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more content, and I'll see you on the next one.